What can archetypes teach you about your purpose and pain? My name is Eileen Burns. I'm a soul empowerment coach, a healer, and spiritual business strategist. Now, today I'm going to talk about how archetypes are a great way to understand different elements about our purpose, roles in life, identities, and even our main core wounds, where we have most of our emotional pain and self-sabotaging strategies. Now, archetypes is something that I've been passionate about for a long time. I started delving into archetypes over 25 years ago, but it wasn't till probably, I'm trying to think, that would be over 10 years ago when I started to look at archetypes in a different way and had more time just to do a variety of reasons to focus on it. And first of all, what was it that pulled me really back in to that, even though it was part, sometimes it was part of the way I worked. It was when I saw it from a brand and marketing perspective. I started to recognize aspects of me that I hadn't noticed and I took for granted in my business, but also the reasons why certain things work very easy in my business and why certain other things were a huge challenge. And archetypes are really useful to help us explore aspects of ourselves. They can be really useful in certain types of shadow work and personal development work, spiritual work, in relation to helping us to understand how we present ourselves. Now, at our core, we all have what I believe is a soul essence. And I believe that we come in with innate gifts. And I think, for example, there's lots of spiritual gifts that people assume that only certain people have. And I don't believe that on one level. I believe that we all have spiritual gifts. But of course, I do believe that each unique soul has certain qualities and certain essences that are more stronger or has a certain mixture that is part of their purpose, is part of what they're here to do. And some of that can be nurtured in the right way, and some of it can be either squashed or they can be kind of almost pushed off into different tangents. And the easiest way to understand that and think about it is, if you think about it as a child, maybe you love to draw or love to do, you were a great artist, but maybe your family or parents didn't believe that anyone could make money out of being an artist. So they would discourage you from that dream of being an artist and sharing your art and your creative endeavours. And this is quite a common thing. It's often people around us trying to mean well, but they are maybe scared for your security, or maybe the stress and unhappiness that may come from pursuing what they believe is an impossible dream, or a dream that comes with a lot of maybe struggle and suffering in different types of ways. And that's just an example of one aspect of what can lead us down often the wrong paths. And are they the wrong paths? Because sometimes I think in life we think they're the wrong paths, but actually there's big lessons in that. And there's big nuggets of wisdom and learning from that. It's like everything. Any negative experience that we experience and what we attract into life can turn out to be, in some ways, also a really powerful gift. And I know that is just as well as anybody else, because many of the greatest challenges that I experienced actually were my biggest learning, and were actually what helped me be able to do the work that I do today. So there's a different way of looking at it. But there is that element, I see it in clients, I also see it in students, where you can notice things about them that they don't actually notice about themselves, or they're kind of undervalue it because it's their gifts, it's their skills, it's something they've had. There can be innate gifts that are very obvious to other people, but not obvious to that individual. And certain qualities that, because that person is always lived with those gifts and skills, it's like they cannot see the wood for the trees. There's very much that element. And, when you're, purpose is one of the things that I love helping people with, other than empowerment aspects. And that's why I ended up doing a lot of helping people with their business, marketing and coaching. And particularly in the spiritual sector, where when you are truly drawn to be more a spiritual worker, you're coming at a deeper soul level, and you want to do things with more integrity and alignment. There's that, if you truly are doing, from that perspective, there's something, it's a calling, it's a vocation, rather than just about making money and getting you from the A to B. It's something deeper inside that is drawing you forward. But even when we're getting pushed forward into aspects of what we believe is our purpose, it can feel like you're getting into still a maze. And I'll give you an example. For example, when you go into the holistic field and therapies and spiritual field, there is so many different modalities, there's so many different tools. And also that can be very, very distracting. The spiritual seeker often goes seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom, maybe seeking healing, seeking spiritual growth, seeking answers. And in that exploration, that's part of even the healer's journey and the hero's journey, this exploration. And there's a self-exploration. And often people that are very strong explorers and seekers, they can want to go on adventures and want to try things, but it's really about them finding themselves and aspects. And one of the things that I notice about, for example, people that can be very strong in their archetype of the seeker and explorer, sometimes they don't always commit. They can be very kind of flaky, and it can come across as they're not giving you their all. It can give you that their heads all over the place, that they're maybe ungrounded and they want to be somewhere else. And often that's because they're still seeking in a way that can be in their shadow element, that they're ungrounded. They don't know what is at the foundation of their purpose. A seeker can just go on seeking, and almost be, they either deep dive, or they go it's almost like watered down. It's very thin. They don't go in anything deeply. They just try this, and this, and they're exploring new adventures, but not fully giving something full commitment and dedication. And there can be other kind of archetypes can play into that. But when we think about traits that we all have, sometimes when we come into, for example, the health, holistic and spiritual sector, there are so many things we're fascinated by and interested to and attracted to, that sometimes it's like getting a sweetie shop and we don't know what to choose. And sometimes also, just to do with circumstances, you're limited to what sweet shop you can go, and you just choose the nearest sweet shop, what you can get in that sweet shop. And I know for me, there was lots of courses I wanted to do, but because of some of my health challenges, I was limited to what I could do. So I started with what I could access. I did as much as I could, or like online learning and distant learning. But obviously some of these type of courses are not always the substantial courses and the courses that are going to give you maybe the best training or qualifications or press practical experience. So some of them I did, and then I did as much as I could live. But there were certain things that, like everyone, I found hard. But one of the things that I was always attracted to was what first of all started out as self-development, but I felt that in the personal development and self-development industry, I noticed they were very ego-driven. It was a lot of it was all about goals and surface. It didn't go deep enough for me. And I felt almost felt like me that the bottom was going to fall out of the industry because a lot of it was not really built on true depth, because lots of the tasks were not about people really getting to know themselves. It was only surface level goals. So for me, it was more spiritual development and going deeper. And I had started my journey, studying healing, stress management, meditation, and I always learned a wide range of skills, right? Now, I wasn't always a dipper, right? Considering what I did, I tried to do things quite deep. So most things I would study, I'd either study for a year or I'd study with different teachers so that I had a different perspective, because I recognised very on with my whole life experience and challenges that people often only see things from their perspective. And I was someone that had so many complex health challenges. I had a lot of injury and rare things that were almost not run-of-the-mill. It meant that my own journey getting help was very varied and was sometimes a bit bizarre. Now, when you look at your own purpose, it's really, really important to be able to recognise patterns in your life. It's really, really important to also recognise the pain in your life, right? The things that you've overcome, the things that have always been part of you. And one of the biggest things that can happen in many businesses that are like coaching, if you're a coach, a healer, or a therapist, is that you can go either two ways. You go just basic, you do your training, you do your modality, I do a modality that you kind of like, and you just show up, right? And you just create a business out of it. And often that business is just, you want to help people on some level, and you're quite happy and content. And that's fine. Some people want to do that. But sometimes it can come, it's still a surface level. And you hit a point where you think, and this is one of the things that I saw in many of the healers that I actually went to, was a lot of them realised that they were just doing healing, but they were actually creating codependency, and they weren't really, I'm not saying they weren't helping clients, but they realised it was more important to empower the client. Or they were seeing that there were some things and some modalities they were using weren't making that much a difference. The maybe person felt 10, 20, 30% different. A couple of days, it seemed to wade away. Or that people would come to them for months or years and they weren't shifting. So they realised that they maybe in some level realised, I need to offer something different or something more, or this is maybe, I want to do more for the client, or this is not really what I signed up for. I thought that, sometimes we can be naive, sometimes we know where what our modalities can do and what it can't do and what we're there to do. But there's also sometimes this, we're ready for the next stage. And sometimes we're not. Sometimes we just kind of stay and we know that we're quite happy what we're doing, and that's fine. But often in purpose, it's not static. Even that person that maybe decides to stay in that job in the way that they're doing it, they will still evolve in some way. Maybe the clients they work with evolve, maybe how they do their work, they will evolve. Their life will shift and change, their life experiences, so their purpose will still evolve in some level, right? But there's other people that it's more really conscious, and they tend to want more. It's like it's not just about yearning more and more and more, as in from an egoic perspective, but they're the seeker. That they recognize at some level that maybe something is pulling them to the next step, or to the next layer, or to the next level of understanding. And when we go through those stages, it's like the archetypal journey and the hero's journey, just like lots of things that happen in life, you're going through the hero's journey, and you can hit key points in that journey. The more that you're willing to surrender and really take your purpose to a level and your spirituality, if you're someone who really takes your spiritual work, particularly if you see yourself as more a spiritual mentor or a teacher, it's really important to fully embrace and embody, not just do the quickest, fastest course, but make it's about your life. It's about totally dedicating your life to that spiritual growth, because you cannot support other people if you do not do the work and you're not doing that work to a certain degree in yourself. So when we think about purpose, often people think they get to this point and, I've got my purpose, that's me. But purpose is evolving. It is evolving. And where you were in your purpose 10, 20 years ago, you may have been quite content in your healing journey, your therapy journey, or maybe in another career at that point. And you then get to a certain level and something shifts and you think this doesn't feel right anymore, it doesn't feel aligned anymore, and it's because you're ready to make a leap. And that's why purpose grows. And if you think about there's aspects of us that are always in that purpose. And the biggest thing that people can do and get lost in is when they look for this elusive thing as if it's just going to come by magic, for it sent itself in a way that it's tied up in a bow and it comes with this almost price package. It's almost like getting the condo and the car, and that sometimes people really do think that that's how it's going to come. They have a very romantic or naive or purist view. Now, I'm not saying that some people, things can happen, accelerate like that quite quickly, but at a deep spiritual level, it's almost like there's some aspects you'll probably not even realize that you're actually living your purpose, even if you're not making money from it. Because a lot of people have this perception that their purpose is what their business is. Some people are not meant to be business owners. Some people are healers, but they will never be actual physical healers. Right? Some people are natural listeners and counselors in a way, but they actually never actually have a counsel title or take on an actual role that says counsellor or therapist, right? And I know I've got lots of friends, some beautiful friends that are healers, that are therapists, and it's interesting because some of them are out doing normal jobs and they're actually making more an impact in the people that they work with, the people they support in an everyday way, in other ways, and in society, because they have a certain level of consciousness, they have a certain level of spiritual awareness, they have a certain way of thinking and doing and being, that they actually make an energetic imprint into that field, into that role, into the people around them, right? And we can get so lost in that it has to look this certain way. We live in this modern world where people get this kind of idea that their purpose should look as if they're this high-end coach and they've got millions of clients and they've got a huge membership and they've got all these people. Maybe sometimes as if people have this egoic idea that people should be bound down and looking up to them, when purpose is not really like that. And if we look at, for example, what's happening at the moment, it's very, very interesting. The last 4 or 5 years, there's very much been this age of awakening where people are starting to awaken to their own power, to their own light, but also awakening to what is really going on under the scenes and having to look at the darkest elements of society and man, just like we have to look at our own darkest shadows, and that's a part of archetypes. Archetypes is us being able to look at the light and shadow and being able to, in many ways, heal and embrace that so that we can fully own our power. And if we are, for example, someone that doesn't want to really do the work in our healing work or our coaching or therapy work, we will sit at the surface and we won't see the things that are going on at the surface, because on some level we are working at a surface level. And it's not to you are willing to go deep and really start doing the work. I've been doing deep work in myself for 30 years. And yeah, there was some work that was better than others. Some work I started and then kind of left, didn't really know the point, and maybe went back to it later. Everything has its timing. And everybody has their own timing for certain things. But the reality is that we're at this point where the age of awakening is about partly a kind of unraveling, and an unraveling of many people that actually starting to really own what was already unlocked there, their gifts, but also people breaking away with false illusion where they maybe thought that their gift or purpose was a certain thing, but actually it's not. It's like the foundations are breaking away that were not really foundations, things that were not real identities or masks that we took on that are no longer serving us or serving other people are breaking away, and we can see through it. And that's why people are struggling at the moment, because on one level, a lot of our masks and our, how could you say, our imperfections are showing up, and that's okay. I mean, even me coming on and doing all my sessions, you know, people, as I've said this before, you're going to see my imperfections, and you can see my ego and aspects of my wounding, because that's what happens. And sometimes it's always other people see it more than sometimes you see it yourself. And it's always easier to see it in other people than sometimes see it in ourselves. But the reality is that we are being in this time where it's a time of transparency, and people can't hide things anything more. So when they're being dishonest and they're not being of integrity, things are starting to break away. Now, there's lots of people quite what you would call prominent in the healing and spiritual community, where they're losing favour, because on one hand, they've not shown any integrity over the last 4 years for a lot of reasons, right? And this is not just about judgment, this is about observation. And this is just giving you an example where some people who a lot of people would idolize and put on a pedestal, and maybe have written certain books, are with certain publishing deals or with certain companies, very highly prominent. But the reality, when the push came to shove, there's been a lot of things that they, maybe to do with contracts and to do with other things, they haven't spoke about or been honest about or authentic about. And other things, unfortunately, people are starting to wake up and exposure and see things, some of these darker agendas and what other people to do with spirituality and involved in things that are really not of what we would call the light. So humanity is actually learning a big lesson in discernment and spiritual discernment. And it starts with discernment about ourselves, having discernment of, what is truth, what's not truth. And when we live in a very distorted world, a world that is paved with, how could you say, I was going to say immoral, being immoral, I'm not even saying the right word, but when we're in a world that is full and is trying to confuse us all and make us think that certain things are right when they're not really, or make us, it's like there's so much chaos, there's so much confusion, and there's so many games being played that it's so easy to get distracted, to get pulled into this, to get pulled into that, pulled into the drama, pulled into that, and then not knowing what's right, what's left, right, what's upside down, what's wrong. That's the reality. We've got such a distorted aspect of society that they're trying to normalize that things, it's like they're saying yes when it means no, no's yes, that kind of thing, right? That there's such confusion that if your first example, if you're not in your spiritual power, if you don't have a good soul connection, if you don't have good soul strength, and you really don't have good inner knowing and intuition, you're going to get lost. Because when people have very poor intuition and inner guidance and inner knowing, and that's not strong enough, they go with the status quo. Also, they don't have good, strong spiritual power. Again, they get pulled in to other people's beliefs, narratives, control, ideologies, fears, whatever, right? And this is going to ramp up to another level again. And when you're in your spiritual power, and when you know, for example, even your dominant archetypes, it can give you a huge advantage. Because when you know what your dominant archetypes are in your life, you kind of know what archetypes, where's your power, where your greatest gift is, also where your shadow element. And I'll give you an example. So one of my strongest archetypes in most of my life has been a caregiver. Now I have other archetypes and some of them are coming forward now more. But the caregiver archetype has a strong rescue, have a strong rescue shadow trait in it. Now it's not all bad because the rescue is about, there is the caregiver in that aspect when it goes into the shadow. There's the balance there. That the want to help others can come from this deep empathy and also compassion for someone else, their pain, their suffering, and understanding actually what they need. Now, I know one of the biggest problems that I've had in my business that I tend to be so intuitively aware from an empathic and a sensitive perspective, but also, more in what some people would maybe regard as intuitive or psychic, is that you can see what people, when you're working with people, all the things you need. And if you can do them, and I can do a lot of things in these areas, is that, you want to help. But I found myself, and lots of these maybe would notice this, being able to offer lots of things. And sometimes that's not obviously a good thing. But sometimes it's one of those things I've always felt if I can do it, but it's learning who you do it for and how much you can do, because you can scatter your energy, lose your focus, and lose your power. Now, for example, if we look at many people that are empaths, a lot of empaths can have the strong caregiver and the rescuer, and they can tend to attract a lot of victim and archetypes that like to manipulate, and the vampires who want to come in and too lazy. And this, and it can be their own shadow, their own whatever, too lazy, or maybe sometimes the princess archetype and things like that. There's all different types of archetypes, damsel in distress, who want to come in and see somebody else who's maybe generous, empathic, can see their wounding and wants them to do it for them. And rather than them actually fully owning their challenge and doing what they need to do, and that maybe paying for it and what they should be paying for it, valuing it, taking self-responsibility, taking action. They will do what they can to get somebody else to do it in a way that they want it, and rather with there's that equal respect, honour and value. So one of the biggest challenges that I always had in my business was the shadow element could really come in because I was just so motivated by service. Now, that's a really powerful archetype to have at the moment, because what is showing up in the collective is the moment of people that are just service to self. And if there's service to self elements through your work or your purpose, it starts to show up a bit. With those who are service to others, they are often motivated for the greater good. Now, in a lot of, you get all these kind of tests and personality testings often come out as the altruist. And I remember someone I know who had been a client of mine. He was a businessman with a kind of corporate company. And I remember through a relative of mine, he said, go and ask Eileen to do this whiz. I know what she'll be. And running a business as an altruist is quite challenging, right? Because the altruist actually doesn't have that much attachment to money. It can cause them problems. They just see what is needed to be done in humanity. They can see past a lot of things, and they want to do things. But the disempowerment, the problem is that they will get exploited if they don't start to learn to balance that and to bring in other archetypes. They will attract other people that will look for all sorts of excuses that are not fully committed, or they'll see that person as the way to get their dreams and goals done at a certain way. Now, I'm fortunate I have some beautiful clients and a lot of highly generous and really appreciative students, and it's a balance. But through my career, I've experienced a lot of pain and suffering and problems in my business due to people taking the mick and doing all sorts of things, and even fraudulent activities. But that was the shadow element. Now, what did that teach me about my business? Well, it taught me, it started to make me realise what I had to do in style of business. So it started to make me realise why certain types of business models were not the greatest for me, and also to do with my circumstances. So when you understand your archetypes, you not just that one archetype, I've got a combination. I'll give you two that I would say my business has been built around. So I'm very much the teacher, and I'm empowered. I'm all about empowerment. I've always been, even at the heart, when I first started my business, and I started out with a mail order business while I was building my stress management business, and it was all about educating people and empowering them to make better health choices and better inner choices, right? So it was all about empowering, and it was a deeper level. It wasn't just at surface level. But I've always been a teacher from a young age. I've been someone that always naturally taught other people what I learned. It's something I would do every day. I don't do it, it's something that I do without thinking. And I don't, I would still be doing it even if I don't get paid, because that's what I've always done. Now, when we understand our purpose, often our purpose is something that we do without thinking, that we don't just equate it to a pay packet. If you're just equating it to a pay packet, I would urge you to look again and see what's going on there, right? And really look at your purpose. Often where you invest most of your time, energy, and even your money can actually say a lot about your purpose. Or maybe your addictions. It can say sometimes about your addictions, unhealthy addictions, but it can give you some characteristics and archetypal perspectives of what is more closer to your calling, right? Because it's something deeper. When we see the pain, just like I said about my pain, the caregiver's biggest lesson in life is to learn to love themselves and to value themselves and care for themselves as much as they do for everybody else, right? That's the biggest lesson. And it's, it's a big lesson for me because, and it's interesting, from a young child, I had so many bizarre, strange medical challenges and all sorts of things, and attracted very much the kind of victim and the caregiver, where attracting lots of people who wanted to take or manipulate or almost do harm. So I needed, it was almost on some level, I needed to be cared for and looked after, and I was being exploited, or I don't even know if the word would be taken advantage, but there was, I was definitely not in these circumstances, not being cared for when these people were doing these things. So it was interesting what was going on in an energetic level. Now, when you can understand what your archetypes do, right, and the combination, it makes things easier. So one of the other archetypes that was really strong in me, and I see also in a lot of the clients I work with, is the creator, the artist. From a young age, I've been very creative. I used to be into dressmaking, singing. I lost a lot of these things just to do with my health, but it pushed me down the healing path. But I would say I still have a creative flair when I do things. There's a creativity in the work. I'm very feminine how I work. I'm very intuitive. And if you look at intuition and creativity, it's very close. So I tend to have a creative aspect of how I do things. Now, that's why those three elements are strong in my business, right? And they're part of my purpose. And I would say each of those things have been really, really key in my career. And even in other careers and other parts of before I went down the healing route were actually were part, and you know, they were a strong part of me growing up. And that's why when you understand yourself and you understand your foundations of yourself, it's easier to understand where you've got the foundations in your purpose. What happens is a lot of people get focused on an idea of what they think they would like or what they think they should be, but it's not based on a foundation. And when then they end up in the work, it's not what they think. It was only based on an idea what they thought it would be like, and it's sometimes not based on any foundational skills that they've got. And it's the easiest way to explain it is, for example, nowadays, if you look at even college trainings, it's very, very different when what it used to be years ago. Like when you went to college, just like when you went to school, you get a proper exam, and if you didn't pass, well, you either get to sit it again or kind of, it was like tough. That was the kind of thing. Nowadays, when you go to colleges, it's almost like they're trying to pass everybody, no matter how poor they are or how many, if they're even turned up to the class. I can give you some, I know personal friends of mine who are lecturers. I was at one point been asked to be a lecturer. And I did some, what you would call outreach, lecturing and training work for colleges and things like that. I had been kind of headhunted to do some work for a college, and I refused when I seen what was going on, because there was this criteria. It was a criteria that it was all just about tick boxes and getting people passed. And I remember an incident which, when I'd been to college, all these students who never even attended the class got certificates, and this is what we've got now. And also, you know, there's this thing where some, you know, in a class, and I noticed this as a lecturer and as a trainer, everybody's different skill sets. Everybody's different levels, come in with different levels of experience and different natural gifts. And there can maybe be one aspect to that role that someone really shines. And then there can be that same aspect of that role that's required that someone really struggles with that area. But they might be really good at some other area. And it's a reason why in my courses, my therapist trainer, I've always said I give my students a kind of combination of tools, and I encourage them obviously to have foundational elements that are about safe and effective practice and certain strategies how to do to obviously, you know, sometimes assess what clients need and how to adapt in circumstances, just in case, you know, there's different needs from maybe what most people would need. I still also, even though I do that, I still encourage also my students to focus on, when they leave me and go out in the world, is build their business around their strengths. Because if you don't, you're building a business around a carbon copy of somebody else, and you can lose yourself, you can lose your purpose, and you lose your strengths. And the reality is that your purpose is built on your foundational aspect. It's not a fancy title. It's not even a fancy tool or technique, believe me, because I've actually got lots of fancy tools and techniques that most people don't know about. I only use them sometimes when I want clients. People don't even know what I'm doing. And it's not about that. Of course, these things can be very helpful in achieving certain results, but your purpose, of course, has to link to the results in some way. But it's also sometimes about the experience. And I'll share what I mean. So we all know as healers that everybody has a different vibration and a frequency. But often people just look at it as that we're raising their vibration, and we're almost, so it's like you're going to, if someone's got the highest vibration, you're going to be aligned or feel attracted to them. It's not that. You know, the more that you raise your vibration, people can feel the authentic you. and can feel your essence and the qualities that you're here to share, right? Some people might not want to use the highest vibrational point because they don't feel, and it's not just to do with the level of vibration that they're working at. It's because maybe you just love art and you're very artistic, but that person's not artistic, right? So and obviously it depends on what you're getting help with. Like, I invest in a lot of help and support, and I'm always doing work on myself. And I like to invest in different types of people for different things. I wouldn't, I tend not to go to the same person for all different things. I like to go to who a class is more the expert in that area, or who's going to get me more, is more refined. So I tend to be somebody that does look go an intuitive level, but I also like to know people's backgrounds and what, just to do with my past experience. But one of the things that I would say is that archetypes, even if you don't recognize it, are actually really important in relation to what people need. And I shared this recently in one of my newsletters, and I'll give you one example. So one of the people, and he's easy to describe just because his personality. At the beginning of COVID, I knew what was coming. And just to do with some certain personal circumstances that I was in at that point, I was vulnerable in certain ways. And I wasn't vulnerable, but I was in one ways, but I was vulnerable in other ways. So I invested in this guy who has a very masculine, you call kind of lion energy. Very switched on spiritually, psychically, he's a master healer. He's mastered tea stuff. He has literally went round the world and worked with top healers in all different countries and worked with the best. But it wasn't just about his mastery. There was an energy, a very strong, no bullshit, just talking it straight. So straight-laced that a lot of people found it really uncomfortable what he was saying. He said it was I know that if maybe 10 years ago we could have handled it, maybe even 10 years ago I couldn't have handled his archetypal energy. I couldn't have, because he's so brutally honest, right? I did, and it was the best thing I did at that point. And what happened there was I knew I needed more of his energy as a bit of a pushover, a bit of a softie, someone that had been really struggling. And well, I had started to work through a lot of things, but I had been someone that had been an unruly empath, extremely sensitive, very easily pliable sometimes to energy, because I could pick up so much that sometimes I found it hard to really own my power. And this was someone who was owning their power, right? And had a certain level of them. It was a lot of money, but I invested in that person. And it was the archetypal energy that was coming through, because I could feel it. He was owning it, was truth. It was not built on just an illusion. He had the skills, the gifts, and he got the results with people. Now, I've invested in other people that have all different types of energy, and it was needed at that time. When you understand what clients are going to be a perfect match for that energy, you'll understand. It's like, for example, I recently signed up for a course, and it was for people that had chronic pain. Right now, my main issue was not what we call standard chronic pain. It's to do with being exposed to certain vibration and noise, and certain frequencies would knock me over and whatever, and cause what you would call non-epileptic seizures and a movement disorder. And I was still having this problem with balance, but this person was a doctor trained in physical therapy and lots of other things. And why did that invest in her? Well, first of all, you could tell she was very compassionate. I would say there's a bit of the caregiver in it, but also she had the warrior hero in it. She wanted to empower others. see that they can achieve. Like, you see this in a lot of coaches that are for cancer. They have got that real hero warrior energy. They're very much for the underdog, the person that is really suffering. And this person was helping people that had just been left and that didn't even fit in, like they maybe went down the neuroscience doing the, like, what's the name? God, I can't remember his name. Is quite prominent at the moment. He does all the neuro and mind stuff. You know, he should, you know, people that have spent fortune, tens of thousands of pounds with mind, body, and all that, and still not, you know, getting them forward. And all sorts of traditional, you know, and being told there was nothing that could done for them. So, but she wanted to help. She could see the suffering of people that had so many challenges. So she had that compassion and care, but wanted to pull them up with the bootstraps and help them up those steps and help them through. She had a plethora of knowledge, you know, anatomy, physiologically, neurologically, all sorts of different aspects to her. And it was that I could feel the compassion. I could feel that I could sense that she was not someone that had just dabbled in it. She'd been studying things for 20 years. And that want to really help people, it was genuine, right? Now, when people can feel that, and you can't hide when someone's that as them, it's them. But when people don't know what they are, and they're not, they actually try and pretend to be something they're not. And that's why we all can have masks. Early in my business, I had masks and I didn't even realize it. I remember my mum saying just something that she was obviously trying to help me, but she said, Eileen, you're giggling too much, you're not coming across serious, you need to be this professional businesswoman. So I started putting on this kind of armor, which was not me. So archetypes are really powerful. Now, I actually have a course this Saturday, and it's part 2 because part 1 was free. And it's creating a business around your archetypal gifts, right? It's like knowing how to take your archetypal gifts and strengths, right, and your weaknesses, and actually build a business that is aligned with that, right? Because things are collapsing, things that are not authentic, that are not transparent, that are not built on truth, are starting to fade away, or people are starting to see, particularly when we've got this bifurcation going on. We've got this thing in society at the moment where the people that are fast asleep, completely unawake, or don't want to see what's going on and hiding their head in their sand, they're going that way and they're getting stuck in this really distorted world. And then we've got the other, there is a middle line as well, but we've got the other where people are more spiritually switched on. They're saying, no, 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 I'm not living like this anymore, right? I'm creating a new world. And I'm willing to look at all the dark, willing to see the light and the dark so that I can keep that middle lane and start creating something brand new, right? It's about looking at the light. But what I mean is, there's this polarization going on at the moment, right? And even though we know what's good and bad, it's about holding humanity at a different level and moving forward and not getting caught up in this good, bad, and being fueled by our light, by our power, and by creating and putting healthier imprints into the world, putting other things in the matrix. And the more that you can stand in your authentic power, the more authentic you are, you're getting back to what one of the things that me and Caroline have been talking about. I don't know if it's in this podcast that's coming out this week or it was last week, you know, about the divine. So the divine child is this God spark within us. And when you are in your purpose, you have that divine child stepping forward. It's your you know, is that good divine God aspect of you, your essence of what you're here to do. Now, we're at such a pivotal time in society that it's so important to step up. So if you would like help in this area, as I said, I have a workshop. It runs from 9:30 to 12. I would encourage you to turn up in the live. So many people recently, over even the last year or so, are mostly been investing in not turning up to the lives. I would say try and turn up for the live, because you can actually, this is when you're getting able to ask me, and the more I can feel things about you and the more that you tell me, I can give you some feedback, and that's what it's more about. Now, also when we're on, I'm going to tell you, and I have a new course start. It's a 10-week class, and it's a spiritual development class. And I think it's really, really important at this time. And it's what I call a spiritual toolkit. And it's a spiritual toolkit for light workers, healers, and therapists. One of the things that I've noticed is that many healers and therapists are still functioning at a really basic level with some of their tools. And through the years, I've learned a lot of different techniques, and some what I would think are really foundational, and it can be really powerful at helping you get more soul connected, soul empowered, get more stilling and meditation, and help you be more actually discerning, and also actually bring you back to that divinity. Something that, can help you get at the 0 point. Just really access that aspect of the soul. And it starts on Monday, the 22nd of July. And as I said, it's a 10-week class. And I'll share details of both these classes underneath. And you can also get access to a plethora of courses and freebies over at spiritualmarketingclub.com. And again, a plethora of courses, blogs, videos, and eileenburns.co.uk, which is all about soul empowerment for empaths and light workers. Okay. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.